The technical updates for the Brutale 800 Euro 4 are not limited to the crankshaft, to the balance shaft, to the gears, to the clutch assembly, or to the transmission. The technical updates are also inside of the cylinder head assembly. Now, for Euro 4 cylinder head, we have a number of changes, not only in the machining of the cylinder head, but also in the components and the assembly process of the cylinder head. The first thing to note on the cylinder head, you can see on the outside, there is another attachment point. In this attachment point, there is a very unique bolt, which is a tuning fork. What we have inside of the cylinder head is a number of frequencies that are generated from the rotation of the camshafts and also from the combustion itself that makes the cylinder head casting actually start to sing and go into harmonic resonance. Now, on the outside cover, we have a very large surface. This surface can actually, at certain harmonics, begin to emit sound. We have been able to identify the frequencies, identify the RPM ranges where this sound becomes emitted from this surface area, and we have developed a very special bolt that is designed in a way to cancel certain frequencies at certain RPMs coming out of that engine. And what that creates is a perceived quality. Because it's not noise that has anything to do with wear or noise that has anything to do with reliability, but it is noise that has everything to do with the sound quality of the motorcycle that you're riding. So we wanted to eliminate as much noise overall from the Brutale 800 to give us the opportunity to bring out the sound of the three-cylinder engine. And we'll touch more on that later when we start speaking about exhaust and intake. The modifications to the cylinder head are also with regards to the valve guides. The valve guides that are located inside of the intake port especially are brand new. And those valve guides are a valve guide made out of sintered metal. It could seem like a very simple component, but it's actually very complex metallurgically. This component is made out of different powders of different types of metal. Those powders are then mixed together chemically and physically, put inside of a press and pressed together with very high pressures and very high temperatures to come out with a component that looks like it was a material that was melted together. And what this does is it gives us the possibility to tune actually the properties of this valve guide against temperature, friction, and contact forces as the valve is pushing against the valve guide and as the valve is sliding inside of the valve guide itself. So we changed the material and we also changed the geometry of this valve guide to help us increase reliability on the intake side of all of the Euro 4 B3 800 cylinder heads. Another important feature of the Brutale 800, the Euro 4 cylinder head, is the cam chain tensioning system. We have a cam chain tensioning system on all of the three-cylinder Brutale engines, which is now mechanical rather than hydraulic. What does that mean? We are no longer tied into oil pressure or the change in oil pressure with oil temperature or the degradation of the oil pressure due to the breakdown of the oil over time. And what that means is when you go to start the motorcycle in the morning, whether it's hot, very cold, and the engine has been running already, if the engine is cold, ambient temperature, the force generated by the cam chain tensioner on the cam chain is always the same and helps reduce noise and also precision of the cam phasing, because as the cam chain is vibrating inside of the engine, the cam phasing between the cam gears can change, and we have that now under strict control with a one-way locking mechanism on side of the cam chain tensioner. Inside of the cylinder head of the Brutale 800 Euro 4, there's also mated to the camshaft a twin spring design, both on the intake and on the exhaust. This twin spring design, if you can see, is actually two helical springs which are wound in opposite directions. The opposite winding directions of these springs works in a way that as the spring compresses, there's the impossibility of one spring to become trapped inside of the other spring. And at the same time, this spring system has the unique effect of all twin spring systems that as one spring generates a side force, because as you compress a spring, it tends to generate a side force or a bending moment, the twin spring system helps counteract that side force, reducing the loading between the valve stem and the valve guide, therefore reducing the wear between the valve guide and the valve itself. Inside of the Brutale 800 Euro 4 cylinder head, there's also new camshafts that have updated phasing. That phasing has been developed together on our engine test benches to reduce the COV factor. The COV factor is an index for combustion stability. When we're developing our engine maps on the engine dyno, we're constantly adjusting the phasing of the camshafts in order to have the most constant combustion and repetition, cycle to cycle, combustion event to combustion event. And we do that with the COV index on our engine dynos, looking inside of each cylinder with pressure sensors in order to map exactly what's going on before, during, and after combustion events, and changing the phasing in order to have those events as smooth as possible, repeatedly, event after event.